Which says a lot about you because Jim Rohn was very philosophical, right? He was not a tactic kind of guy. Now, he believed in tactics, obviously, and you don't become successful without tactics. But he was philosophically driven. In fact, I was with Dennis Waitley yesterday, and Dennis told a story I'd never heard about Earl Nightingale. And he's like, we're in the back of a room. This is before The Psychology of Winning ever came out. I don't know what year that was, but the 70s. And Earl, or it's 1981, he said. And Jim Rohn was speaking. And Earl said, look at this guy. He's not jumping up and down. He's not screaming. He's not down on his knee. But he's captivated the audience. He said, you don't have to do all that stuff. Follow this guy.
And that's what I loved about Jim.
Yeah.
I loved about Jim that very fact is it wasn't about antics. It wasn't theater. It wasn't platform performance. It was a mindset. It was philosophy. You see, at that point, all I knew was the world I experienced up to that point. And, I was born into a kind of a nut situation. My parents divorced when I was 18 months old. My mother walked out the door, never looked back. My dad, 24 years old when I'm born, right? So he's just a kid. And he had just moved from the Bay Area, where all his family was, to New Mexico, Albuquerque, New Mexico, to take a job as a university football coach. And my dad was like, how we have a small percentage of Neanderthal in all of us.
Right.
He was like 90% Neanderthal, just super alpha male. I mean, He was the guy on Full Metal Jacket, the Sergeant Gunnery.
Right.
That was my father. And that's the way he coached football, by just demoralizing people so that they could then be challenged to get better, to earn his respect. And it was just kind of, but from that, and that's where I learned that hard work and all the rest of that. Then he got into sales, then he got into real estate sales, and he just always teetering on bust, right? We can't get you new shoes for school until this commission check
So he was
cashes.
doing that in addition to coaching?
This is after when we moved back to California.
So he wasn't coaching then.
No,
he was trying to make it as sales guy,
in sales
entrepreneur.
and real estate, right? But it was always, he was also very negative and cynical and complained about this, that, or the rest, and struggled, right? And so that's all I knew life to be. This was, okay, this is what I got to do. You only know what you see, right? You start mimicking and modeling your reference points. So that's all that I knew. And it wasn't until 18 when I went to my first personal development seminar where I saw the possibility of a whole other world.
Right.
A whole other world of abundance and capabilities and being able to achieve beyond one's upbringing. And Jim, the reason why I resonated so much with Jim, to get back to Jim, is that because he was so philosophical, because it was about a philosophy, it was about a mindset, it expanded all that I had known from up to that point in my life. He expanded the capabilities. He expanded the attitude and philosophy that one can have that can take you to a completely different place than the constraints of your upbringing. So he was the grandfather I never had.
Okay.
Right? I had a grandfather who was a World War II fighter pilot, but the guy was like, if you grunted, that was the most you were getting out of him, and no affinity. So it was like, I have much of my success to thank for two people in particular. One is my father, because he taught me that work ethic. And he took on the burden of raising me when even my mother wouldn't do it. And he did all that he had to do in order to make that possible. But he could only bring me to a certain point. And when I was sitting in the back of the room at that event, I was at his ceiling.
Right.
For all that he had taught me.
Right.
I couldn't go any further. I couldn't work any harder. And that wasn't going to gain me any more success. I couldn't do it anymore. Jim brought me the rest of the way. He was the guy that took me from there to here. Do you understand? Like it
Totally.
expanded my capability that I didn't know existed until the love affair with Jim.
So what makes it so special and unique to me is having been on the side of, watching the thousands of success stories and testimonials, but knowing the tens of thousands of people that have sat in the rooms, right? Not everyone has the success story. And I think, Darren, you're incredibly talented, and I'll talk to you a little bit later about what your secret sauce is. But here's a guy that had already accomplished a lot in real estate, top 1%, age 20, and yet very entrepreneurial. And you hit this ceiling. Most people wouldn't have had the ears to hear what you were hearing. So the timing was right. But so I want to talk about this little word called serendipity. Just curious, because just about everyone I've talked to that's ever been successful had these fork in the road, serendipitous moments, and I'm included. I didn't know who Jim Rohn was. If I'd gone to a goals event, what do you want to do? Couldn't have said run Jim Rohn International because I didn't know who he was, right? But there's these serendipitous things that have happened. How's that played into your life, that whether it's mentors or conversations or hearing Jim and that taking you down a road?
Yeah, I think that if there's one thing I wish I had a pill for that I could just dispense, like what's the missing ingredient for most people, why they don't live up to their potential, is if I could bottle and put in pill form desire and this appetite for growth mindset. I don't know why people don't seek out new ideas and information. I don't know why they don't have a constant, never-ending pursuit for the next inspiration, the next idea. I don't know why their awareness isn't looking around and seeing how the words on a billboard or lyrics of a song don't strike them for the ideas that they're working on to advance their progress on their hero's journey. I don't know why people don't hear the words that somebody says that could have a effect on their life and then do something with it. So that's number one. The other thing is, serendipity is looking back at history and then making it make sense. I think we're constantly, we're on a path, and there's always, we're faced with forks in the road all day, every day.
Right.
And so there is a multitude of paths that we can take through life. So it's not like this one fork of the road and then it went this way. There's hundreds of little decisions along the way every day that is changing the trajectory of that. So it's not like one or two, three defining moments. It is a constant defining reality with every choice and decision that you're making along the way. So, and then the third way I would answer that is the way that Jim Rohn answered it. When somebody said, Jim, I just want to thank you. You've changed my life. You've been the one that has been my inspiration. And, and because of this, I've created all these results. And Jim said, well, I appreciate that. He said, but really, I was just the last person you heard when you decided to change your own life.
Yeah.
And so I don't know why people aren't deciding to change their own life. Right. I don't know why they're not listening to what is around them, that it's giving them the information in order to change their trajectory. I don't know why they don't. Like, if I could solve that mystery, I could solve the mystery of all life itself when it comes to human performance.
Right.
That's the one thing I don't understand. I don't know why some people don't want.
And Jim Rohn would say that as well, right?
Yeah.
It's like
mysteries of the mind.
Yeah. And you can't figure it out, right?
Yeah. Don't belabor it. Just, keep casting your seeds, keep putting out the good words, right. And some will get it and some won't. And
you don't have a lot of say in that. Who gets it and who doesn't.
Right.
So you and I have a lot of history together. There's a lot of things we won't get around to today. But one was when I sold my companies, the people that bought it were Success, and you became the publisher of Success. And we would have dinner a lot. You'd come to Dallas, we'd go out to dinner. And what really struck me, Darren, more than any person I know, was your curiosity. I mean, you were very intentional. Every conversation was intentional. You're a great question asker, right? Like, massively good at that. And so tell me, what do you think your secret sauce is? I know Darren the entrepreneur. I know Darren the marketer. Darren the personal development guy. But you solve problems really quickly too. It's like you take data in and you come up with really good answers. So it's hard for me to, you have a lot of things. If you had to pick one thing, It is that, and here's why. Okay.
So being raised by a university football coach father, his love language was achievement.
Okay.
The only way you got love or attention from my dad was to achieve. And if you didn't achieve, it was a dark, cold place to live under his shadow. And so he was my roots to the universe. He was the only person I had to depend on for even survival. All I wanted to do in life was to make this man proud, right? So it was what became the engine of my pursuit for greater and greater success. So I have that to thank him for, right? It was part of what stoked the fire of that burning desire. And then there was a point, and I talk about it, I think, in the Entrepreneur Roller Coaster book, where I graduated from wanting to please him to wanting to pursue my own passions for my own interests, not for what would make him proud. But for a long while there, it was literally rooted in what can I do to make my dad proud? And that propelled a lot of my early success, propelled my success up through real estate and to the point that we probably had met. So in school, it was really important to my dad that you were successful, that you got good grades.
Okay.
And quite frankly, I wasn't naturally intelligent or brilliant, right? And my student peers were. And that didn't matter. You still had to get an A.
Okay.
You still had to be at the top of the class. So I had to figure out how to go out and see what already had been done and draw from a myriad of reference points and then pull the key pieces and then reassemble it and repackage it in my personality and voice in order to submit it forward to get the A. It wasn't going to be an original, brilliant, creative, insightful answer of my own. I was going to draw on the resources out in the world and then repackage it to submit it as my work. And so it was a hack for a shortcoming. And you'll realize that a lot of people's greatest strengths, what they think are superpowers, innate gifts, divinely inspired, it's not. It's a hack to overcome a dysfunction.
Yeah, for sure.
So like Richard Branson, who is known to be massively focused.
Right.
The guy has ADHD.
Right.
And he's dyslexic. So he built in these systems in his life to overcome that dysfunction. And now, as a result of having built those and having to be dogmatic about sticking with them because of his dysfunction, now he is massively focused and known to be a focused, my number one go-to person as an example for focused productivity. But it was a hack for a dysfunction. So my ability to piece together take complex issues,
right,
pull the most important bits, find out what is its rudimentary, it's fundamental, it's source code and all these things, and then assemble it together, make it simple, and then recommunicate it in my voice is my superpower, but it is the hack for overcoming my dysfunction.
And there's so much there. Wow. So again, what you're talking about is almost like a very left brain type of skill set, but you're one of the best communicators I've ever met. And you've always been a phenomenal communicator. Even at age 22 or 3 when we met, you were phenomenal from the stage. So again, just interesting marrying those two skill sets.